Tsutomu Miyazaki, also known as the little girl murderer or the otaku murderer, was a Japanese serial killer responsible for 4 young girls' deaths. He ate people and liked to look at dead bodies because he watched Japanese pornography and animation. Tsutomu Miyazaki's birthday is August 21, 1962, and he was born in Japan. He was born in the city of Itsukaichi, which is located within the metropolitan area of Tokyo. Because he came into the world so much too soon, he was born with misshapen hands. His premature birth ultimately led to the creation of Miyazaki. It was unknown until a significant amount of time had passed that he was not his mother's biological child, but rather the product of an incestuous relationship that had taken place between his biological father and his older sister. This information was revealed after a long period. He went to Itsukaichi Elementary School, but he spent most of his time there alone because he was bullied frequently because his hands did not look like other children's hands. When he was a young child, both of his parents made it clear to him that academic success was one of their top priorities for him. After that, he continued his education at Meiji Nakano High School, a Tokyo-based institution situated in the Nakano neighborhood. In his earlier years, he was a model student. However, after that, he began to see a precipitous decline in his academic performance. This decline continued throughout his later years. Initially, he intended to attend school to become an English teacher. However, he ultimately changed his mind and enrolled in a local junior college, where he received training to become a photo technician rather than an English teacher. He had planned to attend school to become an English teacher first. After his grandfather died in 1988, he turned inward and became very sad. He had a hard time as a child because he did not get along well with his parents or siblings. This was a big part of why he had to deal with so many problems. His grandfather was the only person who came to his aid in this time of need. After a few days had passed, one of his sisters confronted him about the incident after realizing that he had been watching her while she was showering. She realized that he had been watching her through the bathroom window. She ordered him to leave, but instead of complying, he assaulted her physically. She had no choice but to leave. When his mother discovered the incident, she disciplined him, and he responded by attacking his mother. After learning about the incident, his mother gave him a talking to as a punishment. His mother eventually found out about what had happened, but not before some time had passed. Tsutomu Miyazaki's first known victim was a young girl named Mari Kano. At the time, Mari Kano was only 4 years old. On August 22, 1988, she was reported missing after he drove her in his car to an area outside of Tokyo, where he later murdered her by strangling her to death and committing her murder. Her death was officially ruled a homicide on August 22, 1988. After that, he had sexual relations with her dead body before dumping it in the nearby hills. In addition to that, he used photographs to document the horrible event that had taken place. He took a few of her pieces of clothing with him as a memento of their time together. After a while had passed, he returned to her body and severed both of her hands as well as both of her legs. His second victim was a young girl by the name of Masami Yoshizawa. She was the second person he murdered. When we saw her, she had just turned 7 years old. He grabbed her as she was walking along the road, and then he brought her to the location on the mountain where he had previously killed Mari. At that location, he murdered her by suffocating her to death, and then he turned the knife on himself. After engaging in sexual acts with the deceased person, he left the body of the deceased person just a few yards away from the body of his earlier victim, whom he had also murdered. The next day, on December 12, 1988, he kidnapped Erika Namba as she was walking home from a friend's house. The incident occurred on December 12. She was the second person whose life he took from this world by his hands. After forcing her into his vehicle, he drove her to a parking lot in Naguri, Saitama, where he abandoned her. The city is located in Saitama Prefecture. After that, he made a hasty retreat from the location. After forcing her against her will to remove all of her clothing, he proceeded to take a number of photographs of her body as it appeared in its most natural state before putting an end to her life. After that, he discarded her body in the parking lot that was adjacent to the wooded area, and he discarded her clothes in a concealed location within the parking lot itself. Both of these locations were adjacent to the parking lot that was adjacent to the wooded area. The parking lot was not too far from the wooded area. A young woman named Ayako Nomoto was the fourth and final person he was responsible for killing. Only 5 years old at the time, she was. After successfully persuading her to allow him to photograph her, he proceeded to murder her after she had agreed. After bringing the deceased person's body back to his apartment, he proceeded to have sexual encounters with the body over 2 consecutive days after he had brought the body back to his apartment. After a long time had passed, he began to dismember the body. Afterwards, he hid the head in nearby hills and the torso in a cemetery. He did not give the hands to anyone else, but he did admit to eating some of the flesh still on them at some point. On July 23, 1989, the girl's father confronted Tsutomu Miyazaki when he tried to take naked pictures of the girl. He told him to stop. Miyazaki tried to take a picture of the girl in a natural, not staged way. On the other hand, the girl's father contacted the authorities as quickly as possible after the event occurred. The officers waited for Miyazaki inside his vehicle until he had finished his business, at which point they took him into custody. This occurred after Miyazaki had completed his business. While searching his home, the police found photos and videos of his victims. Miyazaki did not seem to feel bad or sorry for what he had done when he was caught. Instead, he acted as if he did not care about what had happened. One more element suggested as playing a role in the individual's deviant behavior is the accumulation of pornography in the individual's collection. The media dubbed him the otaku murderer due to his intense interest in manga and anime and the crimes he committed. The man's father was so ashamed of his son's behavior that he categorically refused to foot the bill for his son's legal representation, citing that he was so embarrassed. In the end, he decided to end his own life by taking his own life. Miyazaki was found guilty of first-degree murder and put in prison for life without the chance to get out. During his trial proceedings, Miyazaki displayed irrational behavior and blamed his alter ego, the Rat Man, for compelling him to carry out the killings. He also tried to explain why he killed people by saying that they were acts of kindness on his part. Not only did he not exhibit any signs of sadness, but also he seemed to take great pride in both himself and the things he had accomplished in the past. Even though numerous attempts were made to declare him insane, he was found guilty of murder and given a death sentence on April 14, 1997. This occurred even though there had been numerous attempts to have him declared insane. First, by the Tokyo High Court and then by the Supreme Court of Justice, his conviction was upheld after he was found guilty. He has been sentenced death penalty for his crime. On June 17, 2008, he was hanged to death, and he died soon after from his injuries. Thanks for watching.